My first album had been an unexpected success, but I didn't know what to do for the second. In addition, my band, Genesis, was claiming me, not to mention my wife and 2 children whom I had abandoned. With all that work, what was I going to do with my growing family?
Welcome to Tremble Podcast, the place for music stories that thrill.
In the 80s, 2 amazing things happened to me. MTV emerged. My solo videos and Genesis ones were constantly being played on the channel. Although even more incredible is that I became friends with Prince Charles of England. I played on her birthdays, and I lived very closely the love triangle with Lady Di and Camilla Parker. 1981 ended with a new Genesis album, Abacab. It was time to make my second album. This time, I didn't want him to talk about heartbreak like the first one. But just then, I got the papers of the final divorce of my first wife, Andy, and I had to write about it. The first single, Through These Walls, was not successful. But my version of You Can't Hurry Love by the Supremes would elevate my second album, Hello, I Must Be Going, to the top of the charts. In the autumn of 1982, we got together with Peter Gabriel for a single Genesis benefit concert. It was very nice, but it would not be repeated. While I was starting my first solo tour, and I got my first nominations for the Brit Awards and Grammys, I wasn't particularly satisfied with the album. Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin asked me to go on tour with him as drummer. Of course, I said yes. On the way back, we recorded the 12th Genesis album of the same name, which made us sell 4 million copies with songs like Mama, and That's All. At that time, I met the director of Officer and Gentleman, Taylor Hackett. He asked me to compose something romantic for his new film, Against All Odds. The result will be the paradigm of ballad in the 80s. Against All Odds talks about the breakup with my wife in the starkest way I could. Maybe that's why it connected with so many people. 1984 was an extremely busy year. Sentimentally, I was very good with my partner at the time, Jill. I also did as much parenting as I could with Simon and Jolie. Despite the fact that work left me little space, I continued to produce albums, such as Eric Clapton's new one and composing my third album, No Jacket Required. I also participated in the Band Aid Christmas song, Do They Know It's Christmas? My album came out in 1985 when I was 34 years old, becoming an immediate #1 thanks to Easy Lover. Easy love, she'll get a hold on you, believe it. She'll be like no other. Before you know it, you'll be on your knees. And especially to a song whose title everyone wonders what it means, Susudio. I will reveal the secret. Susudio means nothing. It's a word that came to my head one day, and I decided to transform it into a song. 25 million copies have been sold to date, in addition to 3 Grammys and a Brit. At the same time, I was writing another song for a new Taylor Hackett movie, and it was another top one, Separate Lives. So for now, we'll go on living separate lives. They also proposed me to participate in an episode of Miami Vice. I thought about it a lot because there were years that I didn't act, but they convinced me, and it was a lot of fun. Things with my girlfriend Jill were going great, so in 1984 we decided to get married. I don't know if you remember the Live Aid benefit concert that happened in London and Philadelphia. I'll tell you an anecdote. I was the only artist who played on both continents. I sang with Sting at Wembley. I took the Concorde to New York, from there to Philadelphia. And I played with Eric Clapton and at the Led Zeppelin reunion. Crazy. After so much hustle and bustle, I spent the summer with my children. It was a good summer, but it was over, and it was time to go back to work. Luckily, I love my job. I got together with my Genesis friends, Tony and Mike, and we recorded Invisible Touch, our first and only #1 in the USA, and the biggest hit in the band's history. The song talks about those women who have something you can't explain, but you are madly attracted to them, although then, it always ends badly. After that, another tour with Genesis, 10 months and 112 shows, a blast. We had so many concerts in a row that whenever I could, I would go into steam baths to take care of my voice. That was the first tour in which I received a bra in the face. Until then, they had only thrown shoes at us. The tour concluded with 4 concerts in a row at Wembley in front of 86,000 people. I was on top of the world. I had the opportunity to star in a movie that told the story of the train robber Buster Edwards. Thanks to that, I would meet my driver and then friend for life Danny Gillen. How many crazy fans and heavy paparazzi good old Danny has saved me. Much to my regret, because I wanted people to judge me only as an actor. As part of the film, 2 songs came out that would later become #1. 2 Hearts and A Groovy Kind of Love.
Wouldn't you agree that baby, you and me, we got a groovy kind of love?
The movie, Buster, went quite unnoticed. In 1989, I published But Seriously. It was the year my daughter Lily was born, who today is very famous for the Netflix series, Emily in Paris. It is also the year of apartheid and trouble in Northern Ireland. All of that influenced the songs on the album. The biggest hit on the album was Another Day in Paradise.
Think twice. It's just another day for you. You and me in paradise.
The song talks about how well we live in the West and how much we complain. It was used in campaigns to raise funds for the homeless. You know, I'm not good at giving speeches, but I always did what I could to help, like donating all the proceeds from my records sold in Africa to causes in the area. The album, in addition to Grammys and Brits, was the last #1 on Billboard in the 80s and the first in the 90s, which led me to do 121 concerts from Japan to New York, where I filled out 7 nights in a row. That year, I also produced Paul McCartney's album Press to Play and performed with The Who. I even did a small role in Spielberg's film, Hook. Back with Genesis, in 1991, we recorded We Can't Dance, our 5th consecutive UK #1, although something bad was coming, and this time it was going to be my fault. During the tour of the album, we stopped in Los Angeles for a concert, also because I was making a house there. Someone told me that my childhood sweetheart Lavinia was living in the city, so I invited her to the concert. After the performance, he came to greet me backstage, gave me a hug, a kiss, and I felt a shock inside me, something I had never felt before. She felt it too. She left, but we both knew we had to see each other again. It would be a few days later in London. She went to visit her parents, and I continued with my concerts while my wife and 3-year-old daughter stayed in Los Angeles fixing up our new house. In those weeks in London, I had an affair with her. I'm sure you'd think I'm a horrible person, I think so too, but I couldn't help it. It would not last long. After 4 weeks, Lavinia's husband told her that he was going to stay with their children, and she could not allow that to happen, so she returned to him. I told my wife Jill about it, and we tried to fix it, but nothing would be the same anymore. It was 1993. Genesis had never been bigger, yet I had never felt so small. I locked myself in the studio and gave vent to everything I felt: regret, nostalgia, love. The fruit was called Both Sides of the Story. I recorded it all by myself, and while I participated in a movie called Fraud, the only success of the album was the song that gave it its name. But it didn't matter before me. 169 concerts and my second separation, that of my wife Jill, disappointing my daughter Lily enormously. I didn't expect it, and I wasn't looking for it, but at our tour stop in Geneva, I met a beautiful girl named Oriane. I snuck in for her instantly. She had a boyfriend, but a jealous man who beat her, so it was not difficult for me to convince her that I was a better match. Of course, that was the final nail in the coffin of my marriage, but the worst was yet to come. I was still on tour while we were doing the divorce paperwork. I felt terrible, so I wrote a fax to Jill, telling her everything and apologizing. I don't know how, but the fax was leaked to the press, which took only the most lurid parts and published them. Overnight, I had gone from being a lovable musician to a monster who cheated on his wife and young daughter. It was a very hard time when I decided it was time to leave Genesis. Although we didn't make it public until 2 years later, in 1996, when I had already gone to live in Switzerland with Oriane and had found peace and freedom for the first time in my 44 years of life. I guess I'm restless. I couldn't take it so easy, so I decided to set up a big band.
A big band is a large group of jazz musicians who play together.
In it, I didn't sing, I just played the drums. It was led by Quincy Jones and was called the Phil Collins Big Band. We would go on tour a couple of times. The truth is that I enjoyed it a lot, doing jazz versions of the Beatles. But that wasn't the only thing I did then. From 1996 to 1999, I composed and sang the soundtrack for the Disney movie Tarzan. When they asked me to do it, I couldn't say no. I was a real fan. I took it very seriously and composed with total dedication. It was an incredible experience, enhanced by the fact that for the first time in a Disney movie, some songs were not sung by the characters, but by their author, that is, by me, Phil Collins. Thing that I repeated in many languages: Spanish, French, German. That incredible experience ended with an Oscar for Best Song, an indescribable honor. The year 1998 was the year of the compilations, hits, and Turn It On Again, the hits. I was still living in Switzerland with my love Oriane. I married her 2 times and started learning French. I was happy. I'll let you in on a secret. After 30 years of touring, when you look back and think about it, it's physical madness. As a drummer, you have to suffer the bleeding blisters that come out continuously, concert after concert, and that you can only learn to suffer, although the voice is worse. If one day you have bad strings, you can only inject cortisone, or similar to sing, which over time weakens your bones, but all because of the music and the indescribable connection with the audience in concert. But a coincidence would end my life on the road. During a recording, a very loud sound reached my ear due to a failure in the headphones. Little by little, I would lose the hearing almost completely of one of my ears, so going on tour was very complicated. I didn't care. I had had enough, and I liked my life. So much so that when Disney offered me to compose the music for another of his films, Brother Bear, I accepted without hesitation.
Tell everybody I'm on my way, and I'm loving every step I take.
In 2001, I had a son with Oriane, Nicholas Greve Austin Collins. He inspired me, Come With Me. Included in my 7th studio album, Testify. It didn't have the success of the previous ones, but for my new circumstances, I couldn't complain. 3 years passed, and I felt better physically. I also felt that I had to say goodbye to the public, so I organized a tour of 77 wonderful farewell concerts. During the tour, I had my second child with Oriane, Matthew Thomas Clements Collins. But as always happened to me on previous tours, my relationship with her soured, and I ended up divorced from my third wife. The only common denominator, me. I would also do a short Genesis farewell tour with Mike and Tony. At that time, I met a reporter named Dana, with whom I connected very well and we became sweethearts. During the tour, I started noticing a pain in my back that prevented me from playing. I had to stop and have surgery on my spine due to lack of calcium. This was followed by my left arm and hand, for which I also needed surgery, making me unable to play the drums for the longest time of my life. In fact, when I tried it once, I realized that I couldn't. My time as a drummer was over. I was still living in Switzerland to be close to my children. After a while, my agent proposed that I make an album of covers. I had always wanted to do it for Motown, so in 2010 I published Going Back. In spite of everything, I felt an emptiness inside. Do you know what I occupied it with? With alcohol. Who would have thought? I had gone through all the drug times without major problems, and at 55 years old I became an alcoholic. I hardly ever drank with people, always at home in the hotel, but I drank a lot until the alcohol knocked me down and I could sleep without thinking about how I had ruined my family life 3 times. Almost without realizing it, it reached a point where I could not stop. It affected my health, my relationship with my children, and my partner. I had several embarrassing episodes on a plane or while on vacation with my children. I'll spare you the details because, luckily and with their support, after several years, I got into rehab and managed to recover. But believe me, I was about to be killed by alcohol. It was 2014, and thanks to the BBC who were going to shoot a documentary about Genesis, Tony, Mike, Peter, and I got together again. It was a lot of fun. All this ended up in a compilation called Archive. In the sentimental field, after 8 years I left him with Dana, and what life is, I returned to Oriane. I had changed. She suffered a problem that left her partially paralyzed.
In my case, my back collapsed, and I had to undergo surgery with more than 8 screws in my spine to hold it in place.
I finally had a family, which was completed by my other 3 wonderful children, whom unfortunately I had not been able to take care of properly back in the day. In 2016, at the age of 65, I decided to sit down and write my life. The autobiography was titled, Not Dead Yet. What I would never have imagined I would do again is go on tour. Do you know why I did it? Because I would have the possibility of going with my son Nicholas as a drummer. Even if it was with my cane and singing sitting down, there I went. The tour started with the biggest solo concert I've ever played in Hyde Park in 2017 and ran with 97 shows until 2019. I guess that good experience led me to close the circle with Genesis as well, and with them between 2021 and 2022 I made The Last Domino tour, singing my last concert at the O2 Arena in London, where I said goodbye saying,
And it's the last show for Genesis.
I don't know what life has in store for me, but I can't ask for more. I'm the 2nd richest drummer in the world. Ringo Starr is the 1st. I have 5 wonderful children and millions of fans who every day continue to enjoy my music. I'm happy.
Thank you for joining us until the end. If you like the video, please subscribe and share it with everyone.
Thank you very much, Trembles. We love you.